So in this video, we're going to take a look at a very simple workflow. In this case, we're going to move data from the internet and put it into Google Sheets. This is useful if you, for example, want to pull survey requests from Typeform or sales data from Stripe or even tweets from X and many more and push them into Google Sheets. And this pattern is actually quite useful to get a basic understanding of n8n, which is the core goal of this video. I'm going to rebuild this workflow for you to see each step. I'm going to get into the details shortly after. So first we're going to add a trigger, followed by an HTTP request node, and then a Google Sheet node. Let's start from scratch. So this is a workflow, and a workflow is a chain of connected building blocks called nodes. Every node follows the same pattern: input, process, output. Meaning the node gets input data, it gets processed, and it passes the output forward to the next node. Triggers, on the other hand, are a special kind of nodes. They don't wait for input, they just start the workflow. As you can see here, there's no input field in the trigger. When I execute a trigger, you see one item. To be precise, an empty item. And an item, think of it as a placeholder for data and a go-to signal for the next node. It makes the next node run, meaning the node creates a new item for the next step. It will be more clear if we run these two nodes in the later steps. This icon here is a so-called issue. It's n8n telling me that this node is missing something, so it can't run. In this case, the parameter URL is required. What is a parameter? A parameter is the setting a node needs to do its job. Without it, it has nothing useful to do. So before we fix this issue, we need to talk about what an API is, because this is the foundation of understanding how we get data from the web into n8n. An API stands for Application Programming Interface and makes it possible for different applications or services to talk to each other. The application sending the request is the client, and the application sending the response is the server. Here's a simpler way of explaining this. Think of this environment as a restaurant, and you are the customer, client A, and the server is the kitchen. That's where all the food is. But you usually don't walk straight into the kitchen to get your food, right? You give your request to a waiter, and the waiter is in this case the API. They take your order and bring it to the kitchen, then deliver the response from the kitchen back to you. So that's exactly how an API works. It's the messenger between the client and the server. Let's take another example. The client in this case is the weather app on my phone. The server is OpenWeatherMap. OpenWeatherMap is a software that collects weather data from around the world. What I want to know is, what's the temperature in Berlin right now? And the response that is displayed on my screen is 21 degrees. So this is important to understand. The same way the restaurant kitchen uses the waiter as a mediator to the client, OpenWeatherMap also has an API for other apps to access that weather data automatically. So what happens is, the weather app sends a request, what's the weather in Berlin right now, and sends the request over to the API. Then OpenWeatherMap gets the response to the client over the API. And what I can see on my weather app is 21 degrees. Obviously, apps don't speak in human language. They need a precise way to make requests and get responses. The most common type of API you use in n8n is the web API. It's the standard way applications exchange data over the internet. Web APIs communicate using URLs, just like the ones you type into your browser. The difference is that instead of showing a web page, the URL returns specific data another application can use. For example, the 21 degrees on my weather app. Well, this is the perfect timing to jump back into n8n. Let's take a look at the HTTP request. Remember, this is the step in which we start running the node. I chose this node because I want to pull data from the web into n8n. To be more precise, I'll use data from JSON placeholder. This is a website that provides fake data for test purposes. For a better understanding, let me refine the restaurant's example from before. So as we already know, you are the client placing an order, the server is the kitchen, the API is the waiter taking a request to the kitchen and bringing back the results. What we're adding now is the restaurant's address. So in this case, it's the JSON placeholder URL. And what we're also adding is a menu. The menu lists all possible dishes you can order. Think of it like this. Every dish on the menu has, for example, a dish number. And in API terms, it would be the endpoint path, showing you what data you want. In this case, we got 6 different endpoint paths, and we're just gonna click on this one, posts. And as you can see here, there's a lot of data. So we're gonna narrow it down to just the first part. All we gotta do is add the ID number, which is 1, as you can see here, ID 1. And what you see in the URL is the API endpoint. It consists of the base URL, which is this part, and the endpoint path, which is this part. All right, let's get back to n8n and fill out the URL with the API endpoint. And let's take a look at the methods. So the same way a waiter would ask you how you'd like your dish, or to be more precise, for example, your steak, rare, medium, whatever, it's not enough just to access data, you need to specify the action. And that's where HTTP methods come to play. So here we use get, which literally means get or pull data. And it's the default method when you just want to display data. So once we have the URL and the method, we can now execute. And as you can see here, one new item was created. And that's exactly what we wanted. And that's the data displayed. The same data we have here. And as you can see, it's in JSON format. It's a specific format in which data is presented, and n8n can read this JSON format and obviously turn it into an item. Now that we've pulled data from the web using an HTTP request, the next step is getting it into Google Sheets. In the next video, we'll connect n8n to Google and watch our data write itself automatically.